As we're getting started, I want you to think for a moment about something important you learned while you were in high school. Again, take 10 seconds, think back, something important you learned while you were in high school. Got something? Take another second. I'm in no rush. It's gorgeous today. Good. Just hang on to it. Hang on to it for a minute for me. When I was first asked to come speak today regarding sustainability, I had two very serious roadblocks. The first of which was I work at the Chop House in downtown Ann Arbor, and I love it. I love steak. It makes me feel a little bit out of place here, to be perfectly honest. And my second problem was that I had no idea what sustainability actually was. Living in Ann Arbor, I had heard the word tossed around quite a bit. I knew it was popular. I knew it had something to do with the environment. But aside from that, I didn't really have a definite definition pinned down. So I did what any good English teacher would do. I Googled a definition. And I got hundreds of them. It's such a popular word. The interesting thing about language, especially nowadays with communication technology the way it is, it's impossible to pin down the definition of even the most simple word, let alone a complex, buzzworthy word like sustainability. But I found some common themes. There are some common ideas running through every idea of sustainability, whether it applies to business, whether it applies to the environment, whatever. It's that a sustainable system is one that is balanced, deeply integrated with the world around it, and self-powered. Again, that's my operating definition. A system that is balanced, deeply integrated with the world around it, and self-powered. So, I've got my first building block. Next step, as always, daydream. At least that's how I solve my problems. I forget about it and start to daydream. And since education was already on my mind, naturally, the first thing I daydreamed about was Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen played a very important role for me. That big media circus happened probably somewhere around Act 3, maybe Act 4, while I was teaching Hamlet. And one of my particular students, I will call him Homer for the sake of anonymity, Homer was in love with Charlie Sheen. He would incorporate Charlie Sheen into my classroom in every possible opportunity. For example, when we were studying Greek and Latin roots, Charlie Sheen was in a submarine, S-U-B, under M-A-R, the sea. Or Charlie Sheen was winning 100% of the time. That's winning 100 out of every 100 occurrence. This continued for some time. Until maybe 3 or 4 days into this, Homer stood up in the middle of my classroom and he said, Mr. Ferg, no, wait. It's real this time. Charlie Sheen is just like Hamlet because nobody can tell if he's really crazy or if he's just pretending to be crazy to get an advantage. If you've read Hamlet, then your mind is significantly blown right now. If you haven't read Hamlet, then what are you doing with your life? I also daydreamed about the word faggot. This word also made a strong impression on me. Another one of my students, I'll call him Bart. I overheard him call another student a faggot in my classroom. Now, I don't really get too bent out of shape about swearing, but that word I have a problem with. I said, Bart, you just earned yourself some extra homework, sir. Tomorrow for class, you need to have the entire etymology of the word faggot prepared for me and be prepared to share it with the rest of the class. He said, Mr. Ferg, I don't know what the word etymology means. And I said, either you figure it out or you're going to be suspended. So the next day he came into class and he stood in front of his classmates and he said, I'm sorry, all I could come up with was a bundle of sticks. And I said, that's right, actually. It's used for kindling. Do you know what kindling is? And he said, yeah. I use that to start a fire. And I said, oh. How interesting. Did you know that one day it was popular practice to use homosexuals to start fires? That's where that word's come from. And I guarantee you he'll never forget that. In my reverie, I realized that when I think about education, I don't think about the system, I don't think about the institution of education, I don't think about No Child Left Behind, the merit exams, MEEPs, whatever. I think about individual people. At its finest, education is something that takes place from one person to another. So, to start you off today, I want to talk about the main goal of education being to create sustainable individuals, because it's my contention that before we can create a sustainable world, we have to create sustainable people to live in it. So, to start, in terms of being deeply integrated with the world around it, take a moment, please, and remember the joyous experience that was the last high-stakes test you took. Could have been an MCAT, a GRE, an LSAT, ACT, AP test, whatever. Just remember that experience. Alone, sitting at a desk, completely quiet. How integrated are you with the world around you, I ask? You're not. It's the complete opposite. You're not allowed to talk to anybody else. You're not allowed to use any resources. Why do we assess our students on their capacity to succeed in this environment that literally does not exist in the real world? There are no jobs that value that particular skill set. So why is it that that is the epitome, the pinnacle of high-stakes testing? It doesn't make any sense. And I can hear your protestations already, but what about group projects? What about working with partners? Yeah, that's all well and good, except we never test anybody on those skills. It's like if you were a basketball player and you went to basketball practice and you practiced layups, you practiced passing, sprints, dribbling, free throws, whatever, and when it came time to play the game, all you did was shoot free throws. There's a problem with that. When you go home at night and think about how good of a basketball player you are, all you're going to think about are those free throws. You're not going to think about what happened in practice. The only thing you think about is what happens at game time. And the result of this setup is that we end up with people who think they would be bad at basketball when they're actually not. Worst basketball player in the entire world. Ready? Shaquille O'Neal. Can't do anything. If all you do is shoot free throws, it doesn't work like that. Next, I want to talk about balance. Just for a moment, ignore me, turn to somebody sitting next to you. I want you to rattle off as many classes as you possibly can. High school, college, doesn't matter. As many classes as you possibly can. Go. Talk to somebody. Okay, that'll do. Hang on to those for a second. Just keep some of those in the back of your mind. A human being is comprised of multiple, complex, small and large systems that have to work synchronously and in harmony in order to succeed. But to me, they fall into two main categories: mind and body. These two things must work together in order to create a successful, a sustainable human being. Now, of all the classes you just listed to the person sitting next to you, how many of them fall under the category of mind? 90%, 95%. You might have said, if you were lucky, or if that's your major, you might have said something like phys ed, dance, theater, whatever. Maybe you get 5% on the side of body. Why the discrepancy? Why is it that so many classes that we offer emphasize the mind and we have so few on the side of body? Furthermore, going back to the importance of assessment, why is it that we test people in regard to the capacity of their mind? It's rigorous. It's a 3-hour stress test gone wrong, and somebody's going to go over it with a red pen and point out every little thing you've done wrong. When it comes time to assess our body, gym class, all you did was show up and wear gym shorts. I mean, if you're there, you get full credit, right? Why? Why do we refuse to be as rigorous and as strenuous when we test our bodies than with our mind? If we know that the two have to exist in a balance in order to be sustainable and successful, why do we do this? Well, there are a lot of reasons you could point to, but I want to talk about a guy from way long time ago, René Descartes. He uttered perhaps one of the most influential sentences known to man. I think, therefore I am. I think, therefore I am. And that sentence and the methodology that he used to arrive at that conclusion ushered in an age of rational intellectualism that has given us the world today. It has given us so many inventions. That phrase is a cornerstone of Western philosophy, but that has some ramifications. It literally ties our identity to what we can think. My capacity to think and my thoughts make me who I am. We have disembodied ourselves. We have disembodied ourselves through and through, to the point where year after year now, obesity, anorexia, body image issues, they're on the rise. It's no surprise. We teach students sitting in desks. Sitting down, sorry to say, is the most unnatural position you can be in as a human being. We're not designed to do that. So of course we're getting fatter and more miserable as a culture. We need to get people physically invested in their education if we want them to learn anything. Last point, being self-powered. Again, ignore me. Talk to somebody sitting next to you. What powers the average student? Again, what powers the average student? Talk. All right, I need a sucker. You. What powers the average student? Yes. Who said fear? What do you got? Drive for success. Good. What else? Fear of your parents. Good. Money. Nice. What's that? The law. Yes. Perfect. Okay. Aside from the drive of success, which is kind of your God, I would love to teach you. For the most part, what powers the average student? The idea that you might one day go to college, grades, parents, teachers, letters and numbers, something that might exist in the future. If you play your cards right, you might get a job. The problem with these things is that they're all external motivators. None of these things are coming from within. They're all coming from without. Here's how external motivators work, okay? Very simple. Let's say I promise you I'll give you $1 to push a red button. All right, you'll push it. You're getting $1 after all. Yeah, hang out for a minute, whatever. Let's say I promise you I'll give you $100 to push a red button. You're going to town. $100? Of course. Well, there you go. It's proven, right? Increase external motivator, you increase performance. No, that is wrong. You are one Google search away from a raft of research that proves when you increase external motivators, you actually inhibit performance on creative tasks. On a mundane task, yes, that works. But on creative tasks, it actually goes down. It gets worse. So why do we continue to emphasize the importance of grades, of college, of a future job, when it actually is inhibiting performance? Think about it like this. All right, you wake up one day and you're late for work. Hate that feeling. Your stomach sinks. You feel like you're going to puke. You get in your car. You drive. My boss is going to be mad. You drive. You finally get there. What do you remember about your drive? About what you just did? Nothing. Not a thing. Because you were focused on what was coming in the end. We do the same thing to our students. Think about the test. Think about the grade. Think about the grade. Think about the grade. You finally get the grade. Forget everything I just learned promptly. Why are we still doing this? It doesn't work. It doesn't work. If you just get in your car and go for a drive, you got to pay attention to everything around you. The difference is in the focus. If you're focused on the end goal, on the external reward, you get questions like, how many points is this worth? I hate that question. Why are you concerned about the points? Be concerned with what you're doing. If you're internally motivated, the focus is on the process, what you're actually doing, what's going on around you. We need to foster internal motivation and stop with the arbitrary, meaningless grades and numbers that have no effect on the lives of our students. It's doing nothing but squashing their inner desires. That's all we're doing. We're systematically rooting it out. Okay, so to recap. Our current education system teaches people to be alone, completely disembodied, and motivated only by things that exist outside of the self. I don't mean to cheapen the quality of my talk by inviting something that sounds like a conspiracy theory, but it seems to me that if I were a third-party observer, I would have to conclude that we were educating consumers. We are not educating critical thinkers. We're not, and we haven't been for quite some time now. And it's a shame. It's a shame. We are literally educating ourselves away from everything that makes us human, away from our bodies, away from the way we interact with other people and the world around us, away from the thing that I think is quintessentially human, our ability to shape the world based on how we feel inside, to turn that internal motivation into something that manifests itself in the physical world. We're doing away with it systematically. I almost want to say on purpose, because that's the way it seems. Human beings learn through experiences. They learn through experiences because we are people and we are animals. Over the course of evolutionary history, we've basically developed three kinds of brain. You have your primitive brain that takes care of all of your drives, your body motions, things like that. You have your mammalian brain, your emotional brain, right? Things that register on an emotional level for you. And then you have your outer layer, most recently developed, your neocortex, your thinking brain. As it is right now, we are only educating that outer layer. We're kind of shotgunning information across the brains of our students, hoping some of it sticks, but that doesn't work. We need to get people emotionally invested in what they're learning. Think way back. Think about what you thought about, the one important thing that you learned in high school. I'd be willing to bet you that you have some kind of emotional investment in that information. Somebody, maybe it was a teacher, a parent, a loved one, whatever, turned that information into an experience for you, and it resonates on a deeper level that will stick for you. We need to use that to our advantage, because right now, the only experience we're giving our students is boredom. And you can't learn anything when you're bored. Overwhelmingly, if you had to pick one goal for education, you would probably say something like, well, you should probably get people excited about learning so that when they get out of the public system, they'll continue to do so. Not happening. We need to use emotions. I guarantee you nobody's going to forget the definition of faggot because I've attached an emotion to that experience. Similarly, nobody will forget that Charlie Sheen is a modern-day Hamlet. Because despite the fact that some emotions like pain, shame, guilt, fear, love, whatever, they all work to teach people, but they're hard to integrate into the classroom, the one experience that we can use to our advantage is fun. Our ability to play is our evolutionary adaptation to this world. The way we play, and I mean, that's all play is. You're working within a pre-existing structure. It could be a sport, it could be music, whatever. You have rules, and then you're just given go ahead to come up with a creative solution to solve the problem. That's play. The reason that it feels so good and the reason you remember the things that you do that are fun is because that's how we learn. We have to use it to our advantage. I will end by saying that the solutions that we need to create are really not, they're not going to come from our government. They're not going to come from the Department of Education. They're not going to come from any existing entity that represents the United States of America, because if I've learned nothing, I've learned that government follows where the money goes. Just look at the war budget. There's lots of money to be made there, so naturally the government is heavily invested. There's no money to be made in education. So they're just going to continue to raise standards and hope everything goes okay, and it's up to us to make sure that doesn't happen. Thank you so much.